For the blind hem stitch, I'm actually going to do this on the same piece of fabric that I did the slip stitch sample. So I'm going to do these both on the same sample. From the side that you have the slip stitch folded over, I'm also going to fold over the other side an inch. Notice that I have already finished my edge here. You can do that with a serger, that's usually the case, or you could pink it, which is with this pair of scissors right here. Notice that they have jagged edges. In any case, I have serged mine. There are other methods to finishing edges, which you can look up. But for this, I'm going to be serging it. And I'm just going to be folding it up an inch. I'm pressing that into place, and I am ready to start hand sewing. To sew a blind hem, I'm going to use a single piece of thread. I don't want a double thick layer of thread. I'm going to have a knot at the end of it. And I'm going to use this side that has a finish already, so it could have been paint, it could have been whatever. I am also going to be sewing, well, on this one, unlike the slip stitch, I'll be going from left to right. So I'm going to come in, and what's different about this is on the slip stitch, I was sewing along the edge. With a blind hem, I will be folding back 1/4 of an inch and sewing along at 1/4 of an inch. What that does is it makes it blind. So unlike the slip stitch where on the surface of the fabric you can kind of see a little bit of a ridge, the blind hem, it's not along the edge, so it's holding 2 layers of fabric flat and it's stitching down a little bit further, so it won't, the edge of the fabric's not going to show up on the outside. So if you really truly want something invisible, this is the stitch that you're going to use. So I'm just going to fold it back 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take a bite of the fabric on the folded part, on the actual hem, and then I'm going to move 1/8 of an inch and take a little bite of the fabric. Notice I'm sewing from right to left. Even though I'm moving from left to right, I'm sewing from right to left. I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch, take a few threads of fabric from the garment, and then I'm going to move another 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to take a bite of the hem. So the full length of the stitch from bite of hem to bite of hem will be about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to come 1/8 of an inch, take a little tiny bite of the garment fabric, and I'm going to come and take a bite of the hem fabric. You can take a little bit bigger of a bite from the hem fabric because it's not going to be visible on the outside. I'm going to finish the rest of this and then I'll show you how to tie the knot. To tie the final knot on a blind hem stitch, I have just taken my final bite of the hem. I'm going to move 1/8 of an inch over, take a little tiny bite of the garment fabric, and at the same time I'm going to come through the hem fabric. So I'm going to take a bite of both of them at the same time. And then I'm just going to come and take a bite of only, very close to where I came out here, of only the hem fabric. And as it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, it's going to create a little bit of a loop. And right before the little loop goes away, I'll stick my needle in the loop and wrap it 3 times. Pull it through and pull it down tight. That'll create a little tiny knot. And then, unlike the slip stitch, I can trim this at like 1/8 of an inch because it'll get hidden as the blind hem comes up. So then I'll go and press this. You can see on the hem side, you'll see some little vertical thread marks, and that's totally fine. If it's a matching fabric, you won't even notice it. On the front, you can notice that I can't even see a ridge at all. Unlike the slip stitch, this side is perfectly smooth. You might see a few little dots where I snagged thread from the garment, but they were small enough that if it's in regular thread that matches, it's going to be just fine. So there you go. That is how you do a blind hem stitch.